Hello, Planeswalkers. Welcome back to another episode of the Lotus Archives. This week we are now live with video, and this is going to be the first episode that will be officially on YouTube as a video podcast as well. As always, I am Kava. And this week we are talking about mono blue commanders, and we're going to rank some of our favorites that we have either played or we have thought about playing. So Jack, since blue is your color, I'm going to have you get started here. What is your first pick?
Yeah, so first mono blue commander that I'd like to talk about here is Bruvak the Grandiloquent. Grandiloquent, I think, is the way you'd want to pronounce that. He's a 2 and a blue for a Human Advisor 1/4 that says if an opponent would mill one or more cards, they mill twice that many instead. He's a very interesting, fun commander that came out a couple years back, and I think he's probably one of the better ones if you want to just lose all your friends in a quick and easy manner.
Yeah, Bruvak is definitely a lot of fun. I have him. Yeah, he is definitely one of those cards that if you have him, goes into 99 of a lot of decks with blue in them that focus on mill.
Yeah, you don't want him as the face
like
yourself.
A lot.
I guarantee, as soon as the other players see this guy hit the board, you're just the immediate target. Like, there's no way you're going to try to talk your way out of it. There's no way you're going to be like, oh, guys, I swear he's not that bad. It's not this. That's not. No. As soon as your opponents. Yeah, no, you're not going to talk your way out of it.
Yeah, no, it's not happening.
Politic your way out of trying not to be the threat with this dude, alright? He's just immediately going to be. Yeah.
Yeah, like, there's no shot.
Twice that many is just. When people already don't like mill to begin with, is ridiculous. And he's even got a few fun combos where you can just instantly kill people. One such card being Maddening Cacophony.
Yup.
Which is, it's 1 to blue, right? It has kicker for 3 and a blue. But basically, if you pay it for 1 to blue, each opponent mills 8 cards. With Bruvak, that's 16. Right? Not so bad, right? 16 cards, that kind of sucks, but they'll survive. However, if you... Right, yeah. But...
Yeah, it's not horrible.
Kicker. Yeah, we love kicker. If it was kicked, instead, each opponent will mill half their library rounded up. Which, if you have Bruvak in play, guess what? Double half is the whole deck. So, for 5 mana, essentially, you just won the game. Which, if you're ramping out quickly, you're drawing cards.
Yeah.
In a CEDH style, this could be done by, like, turn 3. Guarantee. I guarantee you could probably pull this off by turn 3.
Yep. So, Bruvak is definitely... He's one of those ones that, like, I know in the next commander that we're going to talk about, he is almost needed in the 99 to make it even more effective. What would be some key pieces that you think need to go into this deck to make it successful?
Bruvak, you want to protect him at all costs, basically. And you pretty much just run a bunch of control. Like, you're already milling people, so go all out with the, gross blueness with it. So, a lot of counter spells, a lot of, dumb control effects. Probably something like, oh crap! Now I'm drawing a blank here, thinking on the spot with it. Just a lot of control stuff, a lot of pillow forting. I probably would put, if I'm building this guy, I'd probably put 12 to 15 counter spells in it, really, and just a lot of card draw.
Okay.
Yep.
So I know you're mentioning Maddening Cacophony, which it's a great freaking card for this deck. I'm going to be mentioning it in the next commander as well as a combo piece. You also are going to have cards like Fractured Sanity. Each opponent mills 14 cards for just 3 blue. I mean, if you have Bruvac on the field, there's 28 right there.
I mean, like, if there's just one player in particular you really want to take out, you could use Traumatize, which is 3 and 2 blue, 5 mana.
Yep.
Mill somebody for half, and then with Bruvac, you just take him right out. So, if there's just one player in particular, you like, if you're in a 1v1 or whatever, and you just happen to draw that one, you take him out, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you got that. You got Tasha's Hideous Laughter, which is a great one. One of the cards that I'll talk about next,
right.
So I'm not going to say it here, but it is a artifact. Goes really well in this style. It's an artifact equipment, living weapon. It goes really well in this style of deck. Maybe more so in the one I'm going to be talking about. But, I mean, there's a ton of different cards you can use. Obviously, counter spells are necessary. Whether it's the generic counter spell or any of the other various counters.
You want to like keep your opponents off from doing stuff. Basically, just be the big no player while you're draining their library into their graveyard. I will say though, Mill it's definitely one of the more toxic-y strategies to win the game. It's definitely a viable one. I wouldn't be super salty if I'm sitting down for a game and my opponent pulls out this guy or pulls out a Mill deck. I was like, all right, cool, you're playing Mill. I personally am a graveyard player, so like, Mill me. Go ahead, do your worst, right? Yeah.
I was just gonna say, almost every blue deck, as long as I'm focusing anything on graveyard, whether it's my own or my opponent's, I'm gonna have a Lab Maniac in there. So go ahead, just mill me because I'll win.
My Tarmogoyfs or whatever. It's like, yes, by all means, please mill me. Please mill my Tarmogoyf deck. I'd love to see that. But it's
yeah, I remember there was one time I was playing Golgari, and I was playing at LGS, and this guy obviously had no idea what he was doing, and he kept, I forget which card exactly he was using, but he just kept milling me, and then he would get mad at me because I was bringing creatures from my graveyard that he was milling back out onto the battlefield, and he was getting so pissed off at me because he had no idea it was even legal. And granted, this guy was very, very new with playing, so I can understand the frustration, but don't play a mill deck against someone that uses graveyard recursion.
Maybe don't bring out Bruvac. Like, when I first started playing Legacy, one of my very first games ever was against this guy who was playing a Dredge deck, which I didn't know what Dredge was at the time. I'm like 14 years old. I don't know what the fuck Dredge is. So, he pulls that out. I'm playing some kind of like... Salt... Well, it wasn't Salt type back then. It was Bug. But I'm playing like some crazy mill deck with random crap. And this guy just loses... When I first dropped my first mill spell, he loses his mind. It's like, oh my god, this guy's he's milling me. And I didn't pick up on what was going on until I saw the Bridge from Belows and the, crazy Dredge crap hit the graveyard. And then now I'm like, oh, okay, I just want him the game. Like, oh, he wanted that, okay.
Yeah, like,
yeah. So
he wants you to do that.
I know there's a lot of people out there that play like Eldrazi stuff, and they, have ways to, at least in like the higher echelons of Commander. I'm sure most casual formats, like most casual games, you can probably get away with it. But there are ways that people will be prepared for mill. They got plenty of cards out there that if they shuffle into their library, or if they go to the graveyard, you shuffle them back in. So be prepared for that.
Yeah, just you want to be very careful playing any sort of mill, because there's always gonna, if your opponent knows what they're doing, chances are if they see you pull out a mill deck, they're gonna pull out a graveyard recursion deck.
They'll want to be on the same.
I know.
They'll be on the same tier as you, basically. So, which is good.
Exactly, and best way to combat mill is recursion.
So what's your guy there?
So
what's your pick?
So, well, first,
for sure,
where are we ranking Bruvak?
In the topper tier, I would say probably. Let's see, I think I had him in A, but after talking about how ridiculous he can be and how like, I mean, on toxicity alone, he's an S for sure. Because like, I mean, I have him built on Arena.
Yeah.
Most of the time, my opponents just scoop as soon as they see they're playing against him. So, like, he's my deck on Arena. Yeah, if I want to win a game on Arena,
yeah, Bruvak. I feel like with Bruvak, he can be made so he's only a B or an A, but 9 times out of 10, you can make him badly, and he's still going to be better than most other decks.
The crab or the Heathen crab, mill for lands. That's like 6 lands consistently you're milling. If you have both of them out, that's 12 land or 12 cards you mill. And like there's so many ways to mess with it and do it.
I mean, Christ, you could build him without any counter spells, and it's still, sure. I would consider that an A-tier deck. For sure. So, I mean, I would definitely put Bruvak as an S. I think he's one of the better mono blue commanders. And with that, you will all notice that there's one commander that we left off of our list. Yep. And we'll discuss a little bit more about him later on. But our next commander, my first pick, and it kind of goes hand in hand with Bruvak. It is a more recent card. It is the Mind Skinner. He is 3 blue for a legendary enchantment creature, Nightmare. And he reads, the Mind Skinner can't be blocked. If a source you control would deal damage to an opponent, prevent that damage, and each opponent mills that many cards. And he is a 10-1. Yeah. So, for a 3-drop, that is pretty disgusting. Although he can be killed with pings. But you throw in Lightning Greaves, you throw in other cards to help protect him, and he's fine.
Player should already be playing. Like, it doesn't really matter. Like, I'll personally say, I don't care what your commander is. You should be playing Lightning Greaves or at least Swiftfoot Boots. Like or even Lava Spur.
Yeah, you need to be playing one of them.
Outlaws, like it gives you Ward 1. Like any form of protection is good protection.
Oh, yep.
Really.
Yeah.
When it comes to those things, for sure. So, yeah, this guy terrifies me. He's very scary.
Yeah. So the Mind Skinner, it's a little bit different than Bruvak because instead of trying to use spells to mill people, you're just trying to do combat damage. Because your combat damage ends up milling them.
Angry, aggressive.
And if Bruvak is more on the control aspect, I would put the Mind Skinner definitely on full-on aggro.
That's a very unique. It's a very unique take on blue. You don't really see too many blue aggro decks, so that's cool.
Like when I first saw him, and I was like, "Huh, that's interesting." And the more I started like doing my research, especially for this episode, I'm like, "Holy shit, that deck is really freaking cool because it does something blue doesn't normally do." And that's focused primarily on combat.
Right.
But so with the Mind Skinner, you're really focusing on combat damage because that combat damage turns into your opponent's milling cards. So you're going to be using, I mean, the biggest one, you're going to want Bruvak in this deck.
Oh, for sure.
You're going to want him on that field because just with the Mind Skinner alone, that's 20 cards that your opponent is milling if you hit once.
Yeah, they're going to be really upset about that.
Yeah.
So, again, expect to be targeted pretty heavily with that one. I would say it's very good.
Yeah. You're going to have cards like the one I was mentioning earlier, or I was about to, is Bone Horde. He is a 4-drop artifact. equipment. He reads Living Weapon. When this equipment enters the battlefield, create a 0/0 black Thyrexian germ creature token, then attach this to it. Equipped creature gets +X/+X, where X is the number of creature cards in all graveyards. That's not just your graveyard, folks. That is everybody on the board.
Yeah.
So late in the game, for a 4-drop, this could be potentially huge if you have a 4-person pod.
I would definitely say you're probably going to want cards like Mesmeric Orb in there that mills every time somebody untaps something. If you want to get really salty and really toxic with it, Altar of the Brood. I don't think I've ever seen more groans from a table when I hit turn 1 Altar of the Brood. You know, it's that 1-drop. For those who don't know, 1-drop artifact. Whenever a permanent comes into play under your control, each opponent mills 1. That's any permanent. So you're like, oh, I played a land. Everybody mill. I crack a fetch land. Get another land. Everybody mill 1. Made a token. Everybody mill. Played this card. Everybody mill. I think the annoying part of it is just the continuation of saying, oh, I played this. Everybody mill. Oh, I played this. Everybody mill.
Yep.
Because it's only 1 card at a time. So it's almost like Rhystic Study, I would say. It's like you pay the 1. You pay the 1. It's like you mill 1. You gotta mill 1. It's like... It's so absurdly bad.
Yeah.
Like, people just hate it. Like, I've been targeted an entire game just because I've turned 1 Altar the Brood.
Yeah. Another one of those cards or creatures that I would definitely put in this deck. One, because the artwork, I love it. It's one of my favorite creatures from Dungeons and Dragons. And that's going to be the Riddle Keeper.
Okay.
And he reads 2 and a blue for a creature. He's listed as a homunculus, but those that know D&D lore, that is 100% a Nothic.
Yeah.
And he reads, whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, that creature's controller puts the top 2 cards of their library into their graveyard. That would be another good one for Bruvac as well.
A lot of the mill cards are very synergistic. Like, whatever goes into one mill deck goes in another. So, like,
yeah,
you're not going to see 2 mill decks be very different. There's not too much variety when it comes to mill, unless you go into like other colors, like a Dimir mill deck with that one god whose name is escaping me for whatever flippin' reason.
Oh,
I
see his face.
He mills based off your toughness.
Yeah, I want to say it starts with a V. I'll tell you in just a second. I see his face
see it too, and it's like,
right now, and it's bothering me.
I think one of my buddies built him a while back, and
it's not the Scarab God, it's Fenix.
Fenix, there we go. He's very good. So that kind of deck could be a little bit different. You have some variety there, but really, when it comes down to mill, it's like every mill deck is going to kind of do the same thing, maybe in a slightly varied way, but
yeah,
ultimately
like,
they're gonna
with Mind Skinner,
get combat versus
spells and discard, and
but like ultimately the deck itself, I think the core structure is going to look very similar, because I think even Mind Skinner would still want those spells. Like, you'd still want Traumatize, you'd still want Maddening Cacophony, maybe a few counter spells here and there just to protect your commander. Maybe not to be like the no player, like, nope, I'm not gonna let you do whatever it is you want to do, but maybe just to like protect your dude, you know?
Yeah, I would definitely put a lot. I wouldn't put a lot of counter spells, but I would put protection in there for the Mind Skinner. Putting the Mind Skinner in a level, I'd probably put him more at an A.
I would say he's just a slightly below
back
in the sense that, like, if you wanted to build one over the other, I would say he's just slightly below Bruvac in that sense.
And the only reason why I'd put him below Bruvac is because to make him the most effective, you need Bruvak in the 99 still. So it's tough because you look at both of them. There can be arguments that the Mind Skinner is better than Bruvak because you can do it this way, whereas because the Mind Skinner doesn't need another card to make him good, whereas Bruvak, granted, Bruvak is a great freaking card, but Bruvak needs other things to be able to mill. Yeah. Whereas Mind Skinner, just attack and it's a milled.
Right, so that is the one thing too you had to consider is like the one card can do things on his own, whereas Bruvak can't really. If like all you have is Bruvak and somebody else is locking you down, then you're just gonna kind of sit there and be like, well, I have double mill, but I can't seem to resolve any of my mill
do
spells.
Anything.
Yeah, so that
can
be tough. So yeah, I would say
they are very close to even.
I think we could probably argue that he could go into S, but like slightly behind Bruvak in the S.
Yeah, I'd put it at like. I would put Mind Skinner more at an S minus.
Sorry, folks, recovering from a cold, so don't need anybody. I don't want anybody hearing me like snotting up and being all gross. So, bear with me on that one.
No
it's
worries.
Like recovering from a nasty cold that I've had for the past 2 weeks. Everything's still congested. It's so gross. So I'm gonna be muting every now and then just to so none of y'all have to listen to that. 'Cause it's bad.
All right, so we have Bruvak.
Sure.
Yeah, after talking more and talking through our thoughts, I definitely think Bruvak and the Mind Skinner are both an S tier, with the Mind Skinner being just slightly below Bruvak. The hard thing is
build mill is the other thing. It's like because I don't have a mill deck at all. I don't know if I'd ever build mill, but would you build mill?
Because I'm an asshole, yes. And I am seriously considering building the Mind Skinner.
Man, if you do, I'm gonna have to counterpick. I'm gonna have to counter that.
I mean, the hard thing for me is, as you know, I have a Min Willy deck. I try not to have too many of the same color. Granted, it's a completely different style, but I told myself, I'm like, I'm only gonna build 2 of each color if I do. So I'm caught between doing. It's real tough because I mean, I don't like having decks that do the same thing.
Right.
Because then I know I lean playing one more than the other.
Right.
Would I build a Bruvak deck? No, probably not. Not as the face commander. I would most likely probably build a Mind Skinner.
That's fair.
With Bruvak in the 99.
I guess secret commander of the deck.
Yeah. But that's one of those things where I've been debating whether I want to build another mono blue deck, and it's a toss-up between 3 different commanders. Yeah. And all 3 I'm going to be talking about. Yep. Well, there's actually 4, because the one doesn't really count.
Yep. One of my picks definitely is one that I plan to build at some point. I've already pretty much got it built. I just honestly need the commander and a couple other pieces, and then the deck is done, which is really fun.
Yeah. I'll probably end up building the last one I talk about. I'll 100% build it at one point.
Oh, so that's okay. So the last ones we talk about, we'll be building then, because that's my same as well.
Yeah, it's the one that we're gonna have fun talking about because it's a lesser known mechanic.
All right then.
But I definitely want to build a Mind Skinner eventually.
It looks like a lot of fun.
It does, and it's definitely more of an aggro deck. But yeah, I definitely put him at an S tier here.
Slightly behind Bruvak, but definitely still. Just because Mill can be so brutally quick and insane that, like, if the other players aren't at the same, like, tier or level or whatever, then you could just end up, like, taking the game away, you know, running away with the win before anybody even has time to blink. So,
yeah, it's definitely it would definitely be very, very quick, especially if they don't know what they're doing. Your opponents that are, or they just have a deck that has no way to combat against it.
Right.
So, Jack, what do you got for your next commander?
My next pick is a really fun one. Actually, he's a very cool blue dude. I'd say probably one of the better budget builds. Actually, if you're ever looking to build like a nice, fun, kind of cheap, you know, brew here, it is Talrand Sky Summoner. He is a 2/2 blue, so 2 color or 2 of any color and 2 blue mana. Legendary Merfolk Wizard. Whenever you cast a spell or like whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, you get to make a 2/2 Drake with flying, and he's a 2/2. So Talrand himself is a 2/2, and whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you get to make a 2/2 Drake with flying. So he's a very cool, fun, kind of, you know, very easy to build spell slinger, token creator, flying deck. So like you can build him in a number of different ways, which, you know, you can focus on just buffing up flyers. You can focus on your spell slinging, just drawing cards, countering spells, you know, doing fun blue spell shit.
Blue shenanigans.
It's just a fun regular. I don't say regular, but like it's the like stereotypical blue commander deck where it's like I'm just gonna play spells, I'm gonna get some kind of payoff for it, and then pretty much just beat you in the face with my drakes. Is kind of the main way this guy plays. Is he's just gonna, you know, you can come out as easy as, you know, turn 2 if you can turn 1 Soul Ring. Turn 2, you drop them out, start playing some Brainstorm, some cantrips, some really fast spells, make an army of drakes, go to town. So he's a lot of fun.
So, what would be some of the main cards that you would be putting in him?
Well, pretty much just those cantrips I mentioned, really. Like, he's a very straightforward, streamlined, spell slinger kind of, you know, blue deck, really. You could just put in as many cheap card draw effects as possible just to keep your engine going. Pump out as many drakes as possible. And he's really simple and straightforward. Just honestly why I picked him, because he's like... He's my top pick for a budget deck. Like, if you're brand new to Magic and you're trying, and you like blue, you like the aesthetic of it, but you don't want to drop a bunch of money on, you know, like the Bruvac Mill or any of the other crazy combo decks you've seen, Talrand is great for something that you could build easily within $50, you know?
Yeah, and the one good thing about Talrand is he's very easy to play.
Yeah.
You're like you were saying, you're going to use a lot of cantrip style spells, so 1, 2 drops, and the more you play them, the more drakes you get on the field. And flying is very difficult to combat against.
It can be, yeah. Flying is a very good, nice evasive deck to play. Like, it's just a very fun evasive mechanic, and there are a lot of enchantments and things out there that buff flyers, so you just run, you know, pretty much any of those you can find that say, flying creatures you control get +1/+1. You know, run with those. And really the main 3 is just like your straightforward cantrips, really. Brainstorm, Ponder, Preordain. Crap, what are the other ones? There's a whole bunch, but those are the main 3 that I know because Legacy Brain knows only those 3.
Yeah, I mean,
those are the best ones.
I mean, you got Preordain, Ponder, you got Opt, you have Consider, you have Serum Visions, or Serum Visions.
That's the one that I was like, okay, come on, I know these, I'm the blue player, I need to know these cards, come on.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I mean, then you could also do cards like Peak.
Peak, Gitaxian Probe. I love me some Get Probe. It's really fun. Get Probe is probably my favorite cantrip of all. It's the Phyrexian mana, look at your opponent's hand and draw a card. Which,
Yep.
like, in Commander, it's kind of funny to just be like, I'm just going to look at your hand real quick. It doesn't matter, but I just want to see your hand. Because, like, in a casual, fun format that EDH really is, it's just funny to be able to, like, I'm going to pay 2 life and take a peek at your hand there. See what you got going on.
Yeah.
Well, they have fun cards like Telepathy, which is a 1-drop enchantment that does the same thing. It basically makes all your opponents play with their hands revealed. Just like, okay, let me just make sure nobody has any counter spells or any kind of janky, shit to stop me.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely, for this style of deck, I would definitely throw in like a Baral, Chief of Compliance. Yeah. For those that don't know, 1 in a blue, he's going to be on the board if you're watching our YouTube. Instants and sorcery spells you cast cost one generic less to cast. And his second ability, whatever a spell or ability you control counters a spell, you may draw a card.
Yeah.
Then discard. So you're going to have cards like that. If you want to get into the more card draw stuff, you can throw in a card like Alondra Skydreamer. She's 2 and 2 blue for a 2/4 Merfolk Wizard. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a 2/2 blue Drake creature token with flying. And then whenever you draw your 5th card each turn, Alondra and Drakes you control each get +X until end of turn, where X is the number of cards in your hand.
That's a finisher.
So, I mean, you can go different... Yeah. I mean, you can go different routes with Tolerant here. I mean, you can go just straight counter spells if you really wanted to.
You could. And
not let your opponent play anything. Or you can go more card draw focused and just put a bunch of spells that are drawing your cards.
That would be what I would recommend.
What are... Yeah, that if I was to build a Tolerant deck, it's going to be a card draw style deck with counter spells in there. Just trying to get all my pieces out onto the field as quickly as I can. What would you say are some of your win cons for this deck?
The Drakes. The Drakes you make. That's your win con.
So pure aggro.
Yeah, you're making the Drakes. That's really it. It's you try to get Tolerant out before doing much else, and as soon as he hits the board, hopefully you'd have some way to protect him, because, like, honestly, the way I built him, without Tolerant on the board, you're just kind of cantripping and drawing cards and not really doing a whole lot else. So the deck is very commander focused. Like, you want Tolerant in play, and you'd want like some kind of the Swiftfoot Boots, the Lightning Greaves, whatever, just to throw on there to give him some kind of protection, and then just start spell slinging away. Just start cantripping, start bouncing, start doing whatever, whatever you feel like, and just make those Drakes, pump them up with, the flying effects, that, that one card you mentioned, and swing in for the win.
I mean, with that, if you're focusing on card draw, I mean, you definitely need like a card like Triskaideka's File.
Yeah, you could have some alternate cons if you wanted to.
For those that don't know, 1 in a blue for Human Wizard 1/3. You have no maximum hand size, and they read at the beginning of your upkeep. If you have exactly 13 cards in your hand, you win the game. So, and it's a cheap card. It's under $2 right now.
The budget theme of this guy, which he's very good budget wise.
Yeah, I mean, some of the other cards that you could put in there if you wanted to go a little less budget. Actually, almost all the cards that I have here are under $5.
That's what I'm saying, man.
So,
if somebody was just getting into Magic and they want to play blue, this is your first blue deck right here. This Bobby's first blue deck right here. Like, here you go. This is your This is the quintessential guy. Like, he's the dude, right? Like, if you want to get started in blue,
I mean, literally out of the cards that I wrote down in my notes, there's only 2 cards that are over $5. And the first one is a newer card, Enduring Curiosity.
Which you kind of don't need, because there's other ways of doing it.
You don't really... Yeah.
You could just play Coastal Piracy.
And that's...
Coastal Piracy is great.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. You hit with the... It's more card draw. You deal combat damage, you draw a card. That's easiest.
Yeah, and the other one I had... And Enduring Curiosity is about $10 right now.
Coastal Piracy
but
is way
it's yeah, and Curiosity is not needed in this deck. Because you're not really focusing on creatures too much. You are focusing on combat damage, but Coastal Piracy does that.
Coastal Piracy does it. Biden of Thassa does it. So I would run those two. I would run Biden of Thassa.
Yeah.
To deal, to draw cards on combat damage, and I would run Coastal Piracy. Those are the only two I would.
And yeah, it's all you need.
You don't really need anything crazy.
The other card that I had on here that was over $5 was Archmage Emeritus for 2 and 2 blue, 2/2 human wizard. He reads Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, draw a card. It's just a card draw.
It's more cards on top of cards on top of cards, right? Like you keep filling that hand up to play more things.
Yeah, but in reality, most of the cards that you're gonna put in this deck are gonna be under $5, unless you want to go out and buy the expensive freaking mono lands and the expensive fucking Rhystic Studies and yeah, which. I don't think you need.
You really if you wanted those, it would put the deck much higher in terms of like power tier, whatever.
Yeah.
On his own.
Because you got like cards like Snapcaster Mage too that you can throw in there. That'd be a good to get back your cards.
But there's other ways to do that.
Even yeah. I mean, if you really want Snapcaster Mage, he's roughly around $15 to $20, depending on the quality. Of the card, which isn't horrible if you're looking to spend the money.
Right.
But if we're looking budget brews, freaking Tolerant, he's one of the best for mono blue.
Absolutely.
With that being said, with how powerful he can be, oh man, it's tough because I can see Tolerant being an A tier and built correctly.
I'm gonna put him in solid A for my choice, just because the budget is a factor. I think because like you can build him pretty cheaply, so he's really good for that, and it can be kind of fast, right? Like you can, drop out Drakes pretty quickly if you get like a nice solid start, and you can turn to him by turn 3. Right? Say you're making all your land drops, hypothetical setting. You turn 1 Soul Ring, you make your second land, you play him turn 2. Turn 3, you play another land. If you've got 3 cantrips in your hand, that's 3 Drakes right there on turn 3. So turn 3, 3 Drakes, draw more cards, get more gas for the tank, and then you just keep going. It can be up there, but in terms of and also in terms of consistency, he can get his... you can get that ball rolling pretty consistently. All the card draw, and all just, the reliability of it. Is it as good as a fast mill kill? No. But it can definitely be on par, in a way, with those, I'd say.
Yeah, I would say, Tolerant, if built correctly, I would say he's definitely an A, high A, almost. Unfortunately, I feel like he's also the type of commander, if you build him and you don't really know what you're doing, he could be as low as like a D tier. If you don't have a concise theme to the deck and win cons, and if you're just putting spells in there to put spells in there, I definitely think he's going to be lower.
Well, the spells will pay
give yourself a little bit of a theme.
The spells will pay off no matter what you do, though.
True.
He's a spell payoff in and of himself, so that's right.
Yeah. See, Tolerance. Yeah, he's definitely a solid A, regardless. But he's definitely a good beginner spell slinger style deck.
That's kind of the main biggest boost to him is that he can be. It's not a very complicated deck to pilot, really. When you break it down to its core, it's a really easy. As far as mono blue decks go, which can be quite mathematical and quite, they can use a lot of brain power. Coming from somebody who played crazy high tide legacy decks back in the day and had to use, math to win games. He's definitely on the easier to pilot side, for sure.
Yeah.
You're not going to be breaking your brain trying to figure out cards, numbers, and crap like that. So.
No, and quick note for those that don't know, Magic has a lot of math in it.
As we always say, math is for blockers. So turn those drakes sideways and let your opponent have fun. Math is for blockers, baby. Let them deal with it. It's like, I got 20 drakes.
All right.
Tap all 20. There you go. You handle it. Do something.
All right. So my next pick here, she is one of my personal favorites, and I do have her built up. I have her built up. She's definitely not a budget build, but I know how to build her budget. My next pick was Min Wily Illusionist. For 1 and 2 blue, she is a 1/3 legendary creature gnome wizard. She reads, whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a 1/1 blue illusion creature token with this creature gets +1/+0 for each other illusion you control. And her second ability is whenever an illusion you control dies, you may put a permanent card with mana value less or equal to that creature's power from your hand onto the battlefield.
Oh,
holy
how many
words.
Eldrazi are you running in that deck?
I'll be honest with you. I don't run any in my min deck.
Okay.
So let me pull it up here. Oh, that's not it. My Min Willy deck is our Min Wily Illusionist. I always say Min Willy for some reason.
Yeah, there's a comma there, buddy. Min, pause. Wily
Illusionist. Yeah. I mean, I literally will just say Min Willy. And I know that's not it.
I hold myself back for it. It's like, I know he knows, I'm just going to let him go.
Yeah. To be honest with you, I play no Eldrazi in this deck.
Okay.
I am more focused on the creating the illusions and copy spells. My win con is 100% Blightsteel Colossus.
Okay, so Eldrazi are too toxic, but the literal toxic guy isn't. Okay, alright, I see where we draw the line, pal. Alright.
Yes.
Okay. So we draw the line at Eldrazi, but Infect is still good, which, hey, listen, I'm all for the Infect, pal. More power to you. I love it.
Well, so the reason why when I first built this I didn't put any Eldrazi in there is because I don't own a lot of the major ones.
Right, and they're expensive. They're a lot.
Yeah, they're very expensive right now. And I found I could do just as well with this deck without the Eldrazi. So I'm going to be having some of the combos I have in here. I mean, I have Leveler and Lab Maniac.
Okay.
Plus I have Thassa's Oracle in there.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah.
Okay.
I have Thassa's in there. Lab Maniac. Jace, Wielder of Mysteries. Enter the Infinite. So...
I can respect that.
you see where I'm going with this build.
As the Johnny combo player of my main group, yeah, I see exactly what you're doing, pal, and I respect and appreciate it.
Yeah. But like I have Stormtide Leviathan in there. And of course with Stormtide I have Archetype of Imagination. Which for those that don't know, Archetype of Imagination reads creatures you control have flying. Creatures your opponents control lose flying and can't have or gain flying.
Rude.
Yeah. And for those that don't know what Stormtide Leviathan is, he is a 5 generic 3 blue 8/8 Leviathan creature, and he has Island Walk. And he reads, all lands are islands in addition to their other types. Creatures without flying or Island Walk can't attack.
I love Stormtide Leviathan. I play him all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, like, having the Jace, wielder of, Jace, wielder of mysteries in there. For those that don't know, he is a planeswalker. For 1 and 3 blue, he reads, if you draw a card while your library has no cards in it, you win the game instead. +1, target player puts the top 2 cards of their library into their graveyard, draw a card, and his -8, draw 7 cards, that if your library has no cards in it, you win the game.
Yeah, so he's that same Legendary Maniac and Oracle. Those all do basically the same thing.
Exactly. So my whole goal of this deck is to either win with some combos or mill myself out and win. But I can also win with illusions. But so I'm going to have cards that help with a lot of ramp to get me faster, to get some of my bigger cards in here, like Heraldic Banner, Caged Sun, Decanter of Endless Water, Gauntlet of Power.
Yeah, those are all good good things to have in a deck like that, good staples.
Yeah, I mean, High Tide is in there.
Always gotta have High Tide. That's every blue deck should have High Tide in it. Every mono blue deck you play should have High Tide in it. Like, it's 1 blue, makes all islands tap for additional blue. If you're playing a mono blue deck and you don't have High Tide in it, please adjust that.
Yeah. So I'm running about 17 removal for this deck.
Yep.
And 19 card draw.
Those are good.
And most of my card draw come from creatures or artifacts.
Right. As they would for a mono blue deck. They rely mostly on counter spells. They do have some instant sorcery kind of style removal stuff with like Pognify and Rapid Hybridization. So. And
yes, I have Ristic Study in this deck.
As well you should. If you have the funds to drop out for Ristic Study, by all means go for it. Just know it will. Ristic Study is one of those cards that will bump your deck up by quite a bit on its own. Like, it is one of those cards that will, you'll go up to here. Like, you could be here, and then you go up to here.
Yeah, like, I mean, I have Mystic Remora in here, too. Yeah. So it's pretty much just the same thing as, almost the same thing as Ristic Study, except whenever opponents cast a 9-creature spell, I do it.
It's got that,
but they gotta pay 4. But it has a Cume upkeep,
it's got that cumulative upkeep,
but it's only 1.
Which, it does get higher up, though. Like, that's the upkeep cost of that. That keeps going up higher and higher as your turns progress.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen most people, they'll play that, and they'll keep it around for maybe 2 to 3 turns, maybe. But after a few turns, they're just like, alright, I gotta let it go, because it just gets too expensive. You know, it's just too high to keep it, on the board, so they gotta let it go. But it's good. You can get some good cards in a 4-pod game. You can get some decent card. People playing their mana rocks, people playing some cantrips. Nobody's really gonna be able to pay 4, so.
No, I mean, and realistically, this deck for those that do want to build a Min Wily Illusionist deck, you can make it for a lot cheaper than what mine is worth. Like, a lot. Yeah. You don't have to go as expensive by any means. Mine, I was lucky enough that I owned probably about 99% of the cards before I built it. There was only one or two, maybe 2 cards that I bought for this deck, and those 2 cards were both land cards that I didn't have. Or the one card was the land card I didn't own, and that was Otawara, Soaring City. Okay. I did not own that card just because I didn't really... Yeah, it's very good. I didn't own the card prior, mostly because I wasn't really... I took a little bit of a break right during, like, Kamigawa, the new sets of Kamigawa. Right, because I was right during COVID or before COVID.
Yeah, it was around that time, yeah. Rough.
And I kind of stopped going to LGSs and all that stuff, so I stopped playing for a little bit. But I did pick up that card.
It's very good. I have it in my Shorikai, my mech style deck. I have it in there.
Yeah. No, it's a great card. And the other one I picked up was very cheap. And that was Fade Away. Fade Away is 2 and a blue for a sorcery. For each creature, that creature's controller pays 1 or sacrifices a permanent. Just simple.
What an asshole.
Simple, mean bullshit.
That's the game, folks. If you didn't think Mono Blue was a grade A asshole, well, there you go.
See, you know me. I'm not a generic Mono Blue player.
I mean,
I have never really liked Mono Blue.
Player is that? It's like, hi, that's me. I'm the blue player. Nice to meet ya.
Yeah, and normally I don't play Mono Blue, but as I was building this Min Wily Illusionist deck, I was sitting there, I was playtesting it at my local game store I go to, and people were fucking getting pissed.
I believe
it. And to me, when people are getting pissed, I did a good job.
If you're playing blue and the opponent's not walking away kind of salty, then were they really? Then did you really play blue? Did you really bring them to the ocean? If they didn't get salty, I mean, come on.
No, not at all. And unfortunately, I built my Min deck to be very strong, and I did it on purpose. Because I think we've talked about it before on the show. I wanted to challenge myself to build each monocolored deck as strong as I possibly could.
Yeah. Yep.
To essentially prove to myself, one, that I can build monocolored decks that aren't in my forte. And realistically, the only blue I play is in Dimir or Esper. And that's because black is my main color when I'm playing. Black and green are my 2 main colors. And I started playing this Min Wily Illusionist deck, and I was like, holy shit. This is a lot of fun.
She looks like a lot of fun.
And there is a ton of math potentially with her. But I have a lot of fun with this deck. My list, if anyone actually wants it, it is on my Architect profile, which I believe we have linked on our Instagram page. But with that, Min Wily, knowing how powerful she is for me, I put her in the S tier for me. What are your thoughts?
I would say so. She definitely has potential to be up there as one of the stronger contenders. The fact that you can get these illusions to be ridiculously powerful and cheat out some really strong cards with her, like the Blightstone Colossus, or any of the big heavy hitters like that Stormtide Leviathan, things like that. I would definitely agree with that for sure.
I mean, and like we were talking, there's different ways you could build her too, because you could build her whereas you're cheating out Eldrazi.
If you wanted, so yeah, you could build her up to pump out Eldrazi. You could build her to pump out Krakens and crazy sea monsters. You could build her because like any of those high CMC cards, you could just throw those in there and have a blast. You don't have to do that. But I would say that does affect. It doesn't affect her ranking. I don't think. I think the variety and the potential there definitely still keeps her in S tier. But it would affect the power level of whatever deck you're like the ranking of her in terms of strength and that kind of stuff. Whatever type of game you want to play. If you want to play more casually, you could have her just as like a fun kind of Kraken. It's like here's my cool little illusions, but oh, you popped my illusion. Okay, here's a 10/10 Kraken, right? So
yeah, I mean, I find it kind of funny, and I actually take a lot of pride in this. But for those that use Architect, they give you a salt sum.
Oh yeah, they've been working on that. I think that's like a work in progress.
Yeah, and for those that don't know the salt score, what they essentially do is they take how much people hate certain cards and how salty they get against those cards.
Yeah.
And Architect does a good job with going through EDH rec and figuring out which cards people don't like playing against, whether it's because they're a pain in the ass or they're that good where people are just like, fuck this.
Yeah.
So Architect reads on their salt scale. It's a crowdsourced indicator of how salty cards make players in EDH. The data is aggregated by EDH Rec. The salt score is on a scale of 0 to 4. The salt sum to the total sum of all salt scores of all cards in your deck. And my Min Wily Illusionist is sitting real nice at 81.11. So, pretty damn freaking high. The highest it can be is 100.
Yeah.
So, it's pretty... people don't like playing against it. So...
Which, yeah, that sounds about right for a deck like that.
Yeah. It's definitely... She's not very nice. So... Jack, what do we got for your next card?
My next one is actually where it all began for me. This one is basically where... So, I'm not sure if many people will know, but like my main play group who watches these will know that for our Discord channel, I have acquired the moniker of Johnny Combo Player. And this commander is basically where it all began. Back when I was still in college, when I met all these guys and we started playing. And it is the lovely, lovely, wonderful woman, Azami, Lady of Scrolls. She is a 2 and 3 blue, legendary human wizard that simply states, tap an untapped wizard you control, draw a card. And she's a 0/2. When I first started getting into, the commander scene and all that, I was still, in my legacy brain, trying to be as competitive as possible. And I built this deck to be probably one of the most absurd things that existed in that scene. And it was pretty much my I want to win the game deck. It was, I had other fun, casual, simple decks that I played, but if I wanted to just wreck the board and get serious, I would play Azami. I had a lot of time and effort built into it. All the decks, the lands rather got a little jumbled. Every island was a snow island. I had an extra planar lens to only make sure that's the snow islands were the ones that were getting buffed. Because like extra planet lands, you could imprint a land onto it. Every land of that name and type adds an additional color. But if it's snow, then only snow lands would get that benefit. And at this time, nobody was playing snow lands. Nobody even really knew what snow lands were. So yeah, so when I brought that to the table and I started dropping snow islands, people were like, "Why the hell are you playing snow lands?" And then I played the extra planet lands, and they're like, "Oh, you're an asshole. Like, you knew what you were doing." So this deck was chock full. It was a wizard tribal, right? Because you tap a wizard, draw a card, and the really fun thing about her is that it's not like an actual tap ability. It doesn't have the symbol, right? As you see here, wherever we want to put her. There's no tap symbol for it. It's just, as soon as the wizard comes in, you can just tap it, draw a card. Which is...
So you can essentially tap 30 wizards on your field in one turn if you really wanted to.
So it was heavy control. I played at least 15 counter spells in the deck. Heavy control, lot of BS, and there was the 2-card combo that I played with it, with the really fun old card called Mind Over Matter. It's a really expensive card.
Fuck that.
It's expensive both mana-wise and money-wise. It's like $35 right now on Card Kingdom.
Yeah.
So it's 2 and 4 blue for an enchantment. Choose and discard a card. Tap or untap a artifact, creature, or land you control. Or actually, not even land you control. Just tap or untap target artifact, creature, or land. Doesn't have to be one you control. But so, it's very simple the way this combo worked. I would essentially get a zombie. Like, I wouldn't play a zombie until I could either same turn play Mind Over Matter, or next turn play Mind Over Matter. And as soon as that hit the board, the game was basically over. I would tap a zombie, draw a card, discard a card, untap a zombie, tap a zombie, draw a card. Basically, draw your entire deck, and then even if you're tapped out, it didn't matter because Mind Over Matter can untap lands. So basically, draw your entire deck, discard 3 cards, untap 3 lands, play Laboratory Maniac, tap the Laboratory Maniac to draw a card to win the game. All in the span of like a single instance. And with your deck in your hand, you got your whole library there. There's really nothing your opponents could do because you're just chock full of counterspells. So it was a very nasty, very straightforward win deck that my opponents really couldn't interact with all that much. And the really fun keynote for this was that back at that point, this was like over 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago now, 11 years ago actually, there weren't any other cards that did what Laboratory Maniac did. It was just him.
No.
So he quickly became my pet card. He's still my pet card. My pet card to this day is Laboratory Maniac. That is one of my favorite cards of all time. And
I mean, Thassa's Oracle does a very similar thing now.
You got the Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, now who does it.
Yep.
But Laboratory Maniac was the best way to win the game with this, just due to a zombie's ability of, like, just tap the wizard and draw a card. So he could win the game as soon as he hit the board. It was all a very quick OTK, basically.
Yeah. Oh, so a little callback. One of the cards I forgot to mention with my min that I forgot I had in there, but Paradigm Shift is in there too.
Paradigm Shift? Yep.
Yeah. However the fuck you want to pronounce it. For those that don't know, Paradigm Shift is 1 and a blue for a sorcery, and it reads, remove all cards in your library from the game. Shuffle your graveyard into your library. Essentially, that with Lab Maniac or Thassa's Oracle, you win the game. Or Jace Wielder Mysteries. But so it's one of my win cons in Min.
It's a very fun,
but as it should be.
Way to win the game.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't think so. Though.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people I know My one buddy David, actually, who we play a lot with, he has stated time and time again that he hates the Laboratory Maniac WinCon. He always despised when I played it. He didn't care for it. He always thought it was just kind of like a, I don't say like cheap way to win, but it was kind of just like, I don't know.
It's a gimmicky way to win.
Yeah, it works, but it's like, what you didn't want to do anything else. You just wanted to empty your library in one turn and win the game right on the spot. Like,
yeah, I see why people dislike it. In the same sense as to why people dislike Infect, because it is potentially easier and quicker to win the game that way than it is through combat damage or commander damage.
I mean, listen, I love my Infect as much as I love comboing off, so that's just how I roll.
Yeah. I mean, you know me. We're going to be talking about my Infect deck when we talk mono green in a few episodes here, but...
Oh yeah, yours is mono green, mine's Abzan.
Yeah, I have my Finn the Fangbearer Infect deck. But Infect is fun, as is comboing off and winning by Lab Infect. Or yes, not Lab Infect. Maniac, yeah. Holy shit. Lab Maniac.
Can you imagine Lab Infect? Oof.
Oh, God.
But yeah, so like I put her in S for sure, just because of my history with it.
I know how powerful she can be.
Yeah. We picked a lot of powerful ones for this one. Or just blue is just naturally powerful. Like, I know a lot, like, it seems like a lot of these are going into S tier, but like, there's a reason why blue is just as good as it is innately. Like, you know.
I mean, I think blue is definitely better monocolor than white is. That's without even question.
Well, they both have their merits, I'd say. I'd play devil's advocate and give both their due.
I mean, I think part of our reasoning is when we chose our commanders for white, we were kind of more all over the board. Whereas, because there isn't as many super powerful white commanders that do the same thing. Whereas with blue, you have two S tier commanders that do the exact same thing as each other, just a little bit different way.
Yeah.
You don't really have that with white too much.
Yeah.
When we talk about black, red, green, they are a little bit the same way as blue. Green especially. But we'll keep moving here.
Cross that bridge.
So
yeah, Zombie for sure S tier.
Yeah, without a doubt. So my next card that I chose was one that I've been wanting to build, and that is Braid's Conjurer Adept. She reads 2 and 2 blue for a 2/2 human wizard, and she reads, at the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player may put an artifact, creature, or land card from their hand onto the battlefield. So, when I first read this, I immediately thought, oh, group hug. How the hell can you win with a group hug in mono blue? Well, I started doing more research. I started doing a lot of research. It is a lot of fun. So you're going to be putting cards like... Oh, what did I write in here? Alright, so... You have cards like Shadow of the Second Sun. Which, Shadow of the Second Sun... Oh, where the hell is it? I just had it here. What the fuck? Okay, so I'm going to start with Sphinx of the Second Sun.
Oh, Sphinx, yeah, okay.
Because I don't know where Shadow of the Second Sun went. I had it all pulled up on my computer screen so I could read it. But Sphinx of the Second Sun is 6 and 2 blue for a flying 6/6 Sphinx, and they read, at the beginning of your post-combat main phase, there is an additional beginning phase after this phase. The beginning phase includes the untap, upkeep, and draw step. So essentially, now I can cheat out another big creature.
Terrible.
And Shadow of the Second Sun is the other one that was on here. And it is a 4 and 2 blue for an enchantment aura. And it reads, Enchant Player. At the beginning of the enchanted player's post-combat main phase, there is an additional beginning phase after this phase. So enchant yourself. And you can just keep cheating out giant Eldrazi, whatever frickin' giant-ass creatures you want. So, one of the other ones that was in there, Paradox Haze, does the same thing.
That's one that first came to mind.
Additional upkeeps. Yeah. So, I mean, Shadow of the Second Sun and Paradox Haze both do the same thing. Now, Jack, do these stack?
That's a great question.
Because if these stack, this makes this deck even better.
Let me... I have to actually look at these cards. I know Paradox Haze gives you the thing, but I have to read what Shadow of the Second Sun does.
Because Paradox is at the beginning of Enchanted Player's first upkeep each turn. But then Shadow of the Second Sun is at the beginning of the Enchanted Player's post-combat main phase.
Okay. So, yeah, so because they occur at different points in your turn, you would get that extra beginning phase with Shadow of the Second Sun. So
essentially, with Shadow and Paradox on the field, what you're saying is, I'm going to get 3 upkeeps per turn.
Paradox says at the beginning of your first upkeep each turn, you get an additional upkeep. Yep. So, if they both said... if you had 2 Paradox Aces, that wouldn't... I don't think that would really do anything. I'd have to ask like a real proper judge on that one, which I'm not that low. I played for a long time, but that's, the weird intricacies like that one are beyond my level. But I believe because of what... this is a really old card too, holy crap.
Yeah.
Or did it just come out... No, it just came out with this...
Well, it was reprinted. It was reprinted last year.
Modern Horizons 3, okay. So let me see. The end step happens after that. Added untap upkeep draw. Okay. So, yeah, because of where that occurs... Yeah, so you'd have 3 upkeeps. If you had this, plus Paradox Haze, plus... this Paradox Haze and your original upkeep, you'd have 3.
Yeah.
Pretty nutty with braids. That's shit. Yeah, that's if we were in the game and we were playing that, that's how I would rule it with that. I'd go for...
Yeah.
I'd agree with that.
And for any of our viewers that know the actual ruling, without us taking too much time and digging in too much research, let us know.
You know what happens if you have say Paradox Haze plus copy enchantment on the board? Please let me know, because I don't know. So let us know in the comments if does that work? Does it not work? Do they get 2 upkeeps? Do they not get 2 upkeeps? I've been playing a long time. I've never encountered that personally, so I don't know.
Yeah, especially what happens when you have Paradox Haze, Sphinx of the Second Sun, and Shadow of the Second Sun all out on the field. How many upkeeps do you get? Because I know there's other decks out there that rely on the upkeeps. You have Obeka, Splitter of Seconds, that focuses on upkeeps as well. And obviously there's blue in there. So that could be potentially very strong for not that expensive. Paradox Haze is the most expensive one at $9. But we'll move on.
I would say real quick though, just my speculation, and again, I could be wrong about this, but let us know if we're wrong. But if you had Sphinx plus Shadow of the Second Sun, I feel like you'd only get to pick one because they're both vying, like they're both trying to do the same thing. So I feel like you would only get the one or the other. Like I really don't.
Well, I think Sphinx and Shadow is because they're the same card essentially. Just one's a creature.
Like they say the same thing. Like their exact wording is the same.
But the wording on Paradox Haze
just gives you an additional upkeep.
Gives an additional upkeep. Yeah. So you would get 2 right away.
Right.
And then after combat, you would get another upkeep
with either or. So
from either Sphinx or Shadow.
So I think we can definitely rule that, like, and this is like a fun little, hey, did you know? Or hey, do you know? Sphinx, Second Sun, Shadow, Second Sun. If you have both on the board, only one is going to go off. But if you have 2 Paradox Hazes, that I don't know. So there's the question. What happens if you have 2 Paradox Hazes?
Yeah. All right. So
but Braids is good.
Braids, she is a lot of fun. There's a lot of different ways you could win the game with her. I mean, most of the combos we talked about before, you could throw them in there. Archetype of Imagination with Stormtide Leviathan. I mean, if you really want to dish out the money, Hullbreaker Horror and Mana Vault. You even got something like Astral Dragon and Machine God's Effigy, which is a disgusting combo.
It is. How dare you bring it up?
Yeah. Yeah. So, Jack, you want to explain that one a little bit for our viewers that might not know?
No, actually. You gotta put me on the spot with that one, you son of a bitch.
So, Astral Dragon is 6... Yeah, Astral Dragon is Astral Dragon is 6 and 2 blue for a 4/4 flying creature. He has flying, and he also has Project Image. When Astral Dragon enters the battlefield, create 2 tokens that are copies of target non-creature permanent, except their 3/3 dragon creatures, in addition to their other types, and they have flying. Machine God's Effigy is a 4-drop, and it reads: you may have Machine God's Effigy enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it's an artifact and it has tap, add blue. It's not a creature.
Nope.
You get a ton of fucking Astral Dragons.
Yeah. It's pretty dang dumb. It's a really fun combo, which, like, the name of the game for blue is, hey, combo wombo time.
Yeah, it's one of the ones that I was just like, I saw that one, I'm like, oh shit. But with most blue decks, you can win the game by many different ways, including Lab Maniac, Thoughts of Oracling yourself to win. So with Braids, where would you put her at?
I would go for a solid... I'm thinking A.
Yeah, I don't think she's as good as Bruvac.
Or the other one.
Mindskinner, or Zami. I think she's on par with Tolerant.
Yeah. I would say so.
Very, very... Yeah, I feel like she's very easy to play. She's good for a new player. Yep. The only thing you got to watch out for is her ability affects everybody, not just you.
So I don't know if I'd say new player, maybe, because that's a lot to... That's a lot to consider and a lot to deal with. It's like every opponent or every player is getting to play a free thing. That can be a lot to keep track of.
Could you imagine a new player having to deal with, on turn 3, like a 10-drop, someone else drops? Freaking a huge ass dragon from my Miram deck just dropping on turn 3.
Like,
yeah, no.
You don't.
Or turn 4, not 3.
Right, but still, like it could be turn 3 if you're ramping and you got some artifact. You know, you got some mana rocks in there. It could be turn 3.
Yeah, so exactly.
Yeah, it can be tough to try to navigate a deck like that. 'Cause, like, when do you play her? When do you use that? What do you lean into? Do you lean into the, the group huggy style of it? Because, like, you could do that. You could play cards like Howling Mine and, things that draw people cards and just try to be that kind of group huggy player and kind of hide yourself and be like, oh, I'm just helping the board. I'm just a friendly mono blue guy. Don't worry about me. And then 4 turns later, you drop a freaking Blightsteel Colossus and you go, gotcha, bitch.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you thought.
All right. So, as we move on here, what is your next commander?
So, next one is a fun one. And actually, the next 2 I have here are kind of tied for what deck I want to build next for mono blue. One is the guy this one is one I've previously built before, which he was kind of on par with Azami, to be honest with you. He was he was kind of a nasty little bugger that I would pull out if I really wanted to screw with people. It is Memnarch.
Fuck Memnarch.
Hey, just tell me how you really feel.
I love him. I used to play a Memnarch deck, but fuck playing against him.
I wonder if you played the same combo I played with him. So.
Oh, which one was? We'll talk about it in a minute.
Well, yeah, we'll get into it. So Memnarch is a 7 colorless. He's a artifact wizard. 7 colorless CMC. He has for 1 and 2 blue. You can make a permanent into an artifact, in addition to its other types. And then for 3 and a blue, you gain control of an artifact. So this is what makes him a blue commander, right? Like, you look at him at face value, he's just a colorless artifact. Well, no. He's got those blue pips in his activated abilities. Excuse me. That makes him a mono blue commander, which is pretty dang hot.
Yep.
So, excuse me for 1 second. This nose is going to be the death of me, I swear it. Alright, so it's a theft deck through and through. You pay 3 mana, you turn somebody's thing into an artifact, you pay 4 at some other point, and you just take it. Now, this is a permanent gain control, so it permanently makes the thing an artifact, right? It's not like, oh, you're an artifact until the end of the turn, and then I gain control of it until the end of the turn. No, it's, you're a machine, and now you're under my control. Which I absolutely love. I think it's amazing. I love machine decks. I love artifact decks. They're honestly up there as like one of my top favorite decks to play. I love artifact, synergy style decks. I always had a fascination with the machines and kind of like RPing it, sort of like doing like a roleplay thing of like building up this doomsday machine with all the different pieces. This is kind of where like Azami was my combo beginning. So like you can say that was like my villain arc start. Well, this is my crescendo of the villainous mono blue player I became. So the combo I have for this, and I really honestly don't recommend doing it because you will, like the other one's like, oh, for mill you'll lose friends or whatever. This one you will. You will lose your play group. They will want to castrate. They will want to string you up. Like they'll hate you forever almost.
Yeah. Little side note. I would not play a Memnarch deck or any theft style deck with people you do not know. Don't go to LGS and sit down at a random pod and pull out a theft deck, because if someone I don't know starts trying to grab my cards, not going to end well.
I mean,
especially if I don't know them on a personal level.
Yeah, like it's...
Now, if Jack and I sat down across from each other and we're playing, yeah, sure, whatever. I trust him.
Right.
But not some grimy guy that hasn't washed his hand in 30 days.
Yeah, theft decks
touching all over my sleeves.
They rank probably one of the highest in terms of like saltiness and all that. People just don't like their cards being taken. But it is still a valid strategy, though. So it is still a playstyle that you can do, and that does work. But this combo doesn't even revolve around theft, really. It involves 2 really high tier cards and 1 kind of lower CMC's thing. So it all starts with Mycosynth Lattice. It's kind of like...
Oh god. I know where you're going.
Mycosynth Lattice is like the key. It's like the glue that holds it all together, basically. It's a 6-drop artifact that simply states all permanents are artifacts in addition to third types. And then it even goes on to say all cards that aren't on the battlefield, spells, permanents, whatever, they're all colorless. So it removes the color identity from everything. And it also lets players spend mana as though it was mana of any color. So if you're trying to play a theft deck, this is probably one of the best ways you could go about making sure you're always able to play your opponent's cards, no matter what. It removes their color identity, it turns them into artifacts just because, and it lets you play mana of any color at any time. Now, for Memnarch, he didn't really care about those other 2 bits. He only cared that everything is now an artifact, because that removed 1 part of its activation. Now all I needed is the 4 mana to just take whatever I wanted. However, that was not where I wanted to end it, of course. I wanted to go, full Doomsday Villain arc. So I would include Darksteel Forge, which is a 9 CMC artifact that made all your artifacts indestructible. And
yep.
Cherry on top was the Mineral's Disc, which is a 4-drop artifact. It comes into play tapped, and it simply has tap, destroy every artifact, land, I want to say creature? Artifact and creature.
Yeah,
it didn't include...
pretty much destroy everything.
Well, it didn't include Planeswalkers run around when this card was created.
Nope.
And enchantments weren't really a thing either for it when it was around. So it really only cares about artifacts, creatures, and enchantments.
Yeah.
However, thanks to good old Mycosynth Lattice, guess what? Everything's an enchantment. So, didn't really matter.
Including lands,
including your land,
folks.
Everything's an artifact. So when I pulled this off, and I will say it is 1 in tap, so you do have to pay. 1 into the Mineral's Disc to destroy all artifacts, creatures, and enchantments. But now some of you smart folks are probably putting it together like, wait, so Lattice makes everything into an artifact. You had Darksteel Forge with all your stuff's indestructible, and then you blew up the board. Yeah, I would do this on a very regular basis. So go ahead and hate me now. I had this deck built for a good while. Again, listen, my college days were very dark. All right, I was not a very nice guy in college, apparently. I played a lot of these, awful combos, a lot of these rough things. It was a fun time.
Yeah.
So basically, as soon as I popped this combo off, the game was just over. Like people scooped up. There was nothing they could do. All their lands were tapped, or all their lands were gone. Everything was destroyed. My board was intact, and because of that, I could do this every turn. Right? The Mineral's Disc, its main goal is that it destroys itself. Right? Because it says destroy all. So the way it's intended to be used is to kill itself along with everything else. But not if you have Darksteel Forge and make it indestructible.
Yeah.
And if you had something like Unwinding Clock that untaps all artifacts on your opponent's upkeep, yeah, I would do this on my opponent's untap step. I would say on your untap, kill everything.
Yeah. That it's mean. Yeah. According to EDA Track, this combo is found in just over 3,000 Memnarch decks.
It's not very common. It's not a very common one. I think I was the only one using it back in the day. It's very expensive.
Yeah, it is a very expensive combo to get going.
Mana-wise,
I mean,
like
because
so.
Yeah, I mean, Darksteel Forge is right around $45-$50 right now. Nev's disc, Nev's disc is very cheap, under $1, and Mycosynth and Unwinding Clock are both hovering between 10 and 15. So those are both could be considered budget, but Forge is very expensive. If you happen to pull one and you like playing artifacts, hold on to it.
For sure, you're going to put it in every artifact deck. Now, it's funny to mention that this combo can be played in any artifact deck. You don't need to be a Memnarch. But I would say the Lattice in particular is the big key piece to at least have that on its own in Memnarch. Just so that if you had that plus, say, like, an infinite mana combo, which blue and artifact blue in particular can make infinite mana really easily with a plethora of combos. Like, the first one that comes to mind is Pilipala and Chief Engineer, I believe is the one for it, or Grand Architect, one of the two. That's just like an infinite blue combo, so well, actually, you don't really need, if you just make infinite blue, then you can just take your opponent's stuff. So Memnarch plus an infinite blue combo is like, I'm gonna steal everything, all are now machine, and you just become the Borg, basically, which is kind of why I really love the deck. Because, like, I like the Borg. I thought the Borg were a really cool villain when I was first introduced into Star Trek, so...
Yeah, Memnarch is definitely a cool commander. He is a very fun one to play. Definitely wouldn't recommend it for beginners or if you don't have a solid play group of your own. If you're going around bounce between pods, I would highly recommend not playing him. But you do you. Be the villain of your own story.
Absolutely, man. It's fun. It's fun to be the bad guy sometimes.
So, Memnarch, I would probably put him... man, it's tough. Because, like, I know how good he can be if played correctly. Like, if you or I were piloting him, we could make him an S tier. But I feel like if someone that didn't know what they were doing, he'd probably be A's. Just because it takes a little bit of skill to pull off some of those combos to do it right without making the board hate you.
I mean, I think
what are your
thoughts? Gonna hate you regardless of that. But I would say, I'd say high A, like A plus. You know, really. Really
that's kind of what I was thinking.
Not quite S, but he's definitely one that, like, you're gonna draw some attention if you play him for sure.
Yes.
He'll get you some attention. He'll get you maybe some side eyes and be like, what you got there, buddy? You know, people are gonna be like, what are you trying to do with that there, Memnarch? So he's definitely a fun one to play if you're interested in artifacts and you want to stick with mono blue. He's definitely one that I would recommend as a fun kind of villainous, you know, deck to build. Because, you know, his thing is fun. His flavor text is also pretty great, because it's like, in the blur between metal and flesh, Memnarch found madness. So, like, the dude is just like, he's like this big-brained, War of the Worlds looking alien thing, which is just, he's everything that I personally vibe with, and he's honestly tied for this one and the last one I mentioned in a bit, are the two that I'm like, I'm stuck between building them because I could easily build either one of these with the cards I own, but it has to be one or the other. It's kind of where I'm.
You wouldn't be able to do both.
I couldn't build both now, or maybe I could build both. I might build both. We'll see. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, all the decks that we're talking about, I have thought about building. Or I may still build eventually. Like, the next one has been on my back burner since she was released. And part of me wants to just say, fuck it, and build her up. And that'd be Emery, Lurker of the Lock.
Love this.
She reads 2 generic and a blue for a 1/2 Merfolk Wizard. And her ability states, this spell costs 1 less to cast for each artifact you control. When enters the battlefield, mill 4 cards. And her ability is tap, choose target artifact card in your graveyard. You may cast that card this turn. Obviously, you still got to pay the casting costs.
Yep.
So, Emery, she is a artifact-based deck, just like Memnarch. One of the cards that you can put in there if you want to be mean is... shit. Wow. I literally just had it up here. What the fuck? What's the... Mindslaver.
And they call me a villain.
Yes.
Really? You're gonna drop the Mindslaver on these. Alright, okay.
Yes. I would 100% put Mindslaver in this deck.
We've got the big guns to play. Okay.
So for those that don't know, Mindslaver is a 6-drop for a legendary artifact. 4 tap, sacrifice Mindslaver. You control target player during that player's next turn.
Just drop that stuff on there. We're gonna
for those.
I hate blue. By the time we're done with, people are gonna be like, why would I play blue then? Clearly, I'm gonna lose my friends if I play blue. Why would I want to do this? Like, blue's terrible. Fuck you guys.
For those that haven't realized by now, I like being an asshole in Magic.
Yeah, alright, tell them what it does.
So with Emery's ability, I could just keep bringing Mindslaver back.
Tell them what they want.
Every single time.
Jeez.
I literally can cast this every single turn if I want. Yeah. As long as I have 7, 8, 9. As long as I have 10 mana open, I could literally do this every single turn.
Which, yeah.
And control someone else's turn.
Mindslaver is basically it pretty much stay. Well, you probably have it up, right? So go ahead and say like what the whole shtick.
4 tap, sacrifice Mindslaver. You control target player during that player's next turn. You see all cards that player could see and make all decisions for that player. So essentially, as long as I have 10 mana open, if I'm playing a 1v1,
it's over.
You're not gonna play. I'm playing solitaire.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of stuff you could put in Emery to make her fun. You don't have to go that evil.
Yeah, if you don't want to be that guy, then because nobody likes that guy. In all honesty, like I've seen.
No.
I knew a guy who did something similar with a red deck, where he would just be able to keep bringing back Mindslaver to continuously take control of somebody's turn, and he basically outed them from the game. It was just like, hey, I'm just gonna keep taking your turn over and over. And you can't
don't be that guy. If you really want to make a mean deck, that's how you do it, guys.
Should be fair that red can do it too. So it's not just blue. Red can also do that. Because red artifacts are also dicks.
Yeah, red can be a lot of fun that way too. But so with Emery, one of the cards that you're gonna want in there is Mirren Spy. 2 and a blue. It is a 1/3 flying drone, and it reads: whenever you cast an artifact spell, you may untap target creature. Yeah, that works with Emery. So you can, for stuff that you sacrifice, it works really well. So cards like Lotus Petal, Mishra's Bauble are very good with that. Chromatic Star as well. So Mirren Spy pretty much just allows you to keep using Emery's tap ability. Some other stuff that you could do in there. a lot of it is pretty much manipulating Emery's tap ability with different sacrifice effects of other artifact cards. That's how I would build her up. But you can also throw in a card like Marvin Murderous Mimic, and now he's just a second Emery.
I would say you could also probably try to capitalize on her ETB effect, maybe to try to fill your graveyard up a little bit more. And her first they're saying that she costs one less for each art. Basically gives her affinity for artifacts, which I don't know why they didn't just put affinity for artifacts on her, because that existed long before she was released. So I'm not sure why they didn't just put that on there. It's a little weird, but I would say that's probably one of her biggest things, because like even if she just dies, that gets around commander tax. So.
Exactly. Some cards that I would throw in there. A newer card. You have Nerdiv, Devious Diver. For 2 and a blue, it's a legendary Merfolk Rogue. She is a 2/2. Whenever Nerdiv Devious Diver becomes tapped, target player mills cards equal to its power. Whenever you cast a spell from your graveyard or activate an ability of a card in your graveyard, draw a card and put a +1/+1 counter on Nerdiv. And obviously, the cards that are going to make artifacts cheaper, so Foundry Inspector, Ethereum Sculptor, you're going to want those in there. But it's definitely a lot of fun. It could be a fun deck to play. It's going to be a lot of artifacts you're slinging. Cards like Riddlesmith for card draw. Codex Shredder to make someone else mill some cards.
Yeah, she's definitely fun style. One thing that I think is kind of really cool to note about her, that if anyone's a fan of Arthurian legend, she's basically based on the water spirit that gave Arthur Excalibur.
Yes,
like, she's coming
you
out
can
of the water with that sword.
Yeah,
really cool.
She is 100% based on that water spirit. I mean, in the artwork alone, she has Excalibur in her hand.
And we do have Excalibur now. We do
have
a card for Excalibur that came out with Assassin's Creed. So
yes,
could be a fun flavor when if you're just looking to play some kind of like cool Arthurian style thing, which was a lot of what that set was. The Wilds of Eldraine was very like King Arthur, Knights of the Round, which I thought was really cool. I really like that aesthetic of it.
Yeah, it was cool. It brought like the Arthurian legends as well as like some more Brothers Grimm style fairy tales. But that was one of the sets I truly liked.
So you could
but Emery,
nice little fun story deck. Would be cool.
Emery, I would probably put her in the A tier. Low A, high B in terms of power compared to all the other ones. I don't think she's as strong as like Bruvac, Mindskinner, and the other S tiers.
I think I differ a little bit on that one, because I would say that she is pretty high up there, just for the fact that
would you say she's same caliber as Bruvac and like Minwilly and
Azami? There's an argument to be made for that for sure, just like based purely on the fact that she can get you back artifacts from the graveyard. She can fill that graveyard up, so she can basically kind of help you get out artifacts that have either been destroyed or things that go to the grave. She can play around with that a little bit, get like nice recovery, and just that cost reduction on her alone, and how quickly an artifact deck can pump out cheap small artifacts to make her cost basically just a blue the entire game. It makes it a very resilient strategy, and she pretty much goes into whatever artifact deck I have that runs blue, she's in it. So it's kind of like, I would argue that same thing of like Mindskinner and Bruvac, where you have both in either 99. Whether you're playing Memnarch or Emery, if you're playing Memnarch, you have Emery. And if you're playing Emery, you don't necessarily need Memnarch in there, but you could play Memnarch. But if I'm building Memnarch, I'm putting Emery in there for sure. She's in 100% of the decks.
Okay, I can see where you're going from with that.
And above Memnarch,
I would. Yeah, I don't think you're wrong. She's pretty fucking powerful, as you think about it here. And a lot of it is because of her ability to just do a lot of the stuff by herself.
Yeah.
But I would say, depending on build, she's anywhere between an S and an A. You could obviously build her less powerful.
Yeah, you can tone it down.
I'd probably put
to be more casual with the.
I mean, as with any deck, you can tone it down.
Right.
But we'll list her as S.
Round budget.
Yeah. All right. So as we're moving on, what is your last card?
Yeah, down to the wire.
Oh yes.
Card, and I would say honestly, kind of saved one of my favorites for last that I'm actually might go out and build today. Actually, the more I'm looking at it, the more I'm just like trying to build for a while. I have all the pieces for it, basically, that I've accrued over the years. Is Zviloon of Sea and Sky.
Ooh.
He has Indestructible, as long as you control at least 2 other Merfolk. And whenever Zviloon attacks, you get to draw a card. On attack, not damage dealt, just if she attacks, draw a card. And then other Merfolk you control have Ward 1. And she's a 3/4. So, very solid, very good pick for a mono blue Merfolk tribal deck, which I just absolutely love. I love the Merfolk.
That really is cool. Interesting.
Tribe. Yep. So, I used to have a blue-white Sig River Guide Merfolk deck, but that became the Sharkai Mech build, whatever. So, I still have all the Merfolk. I have all the main pieces you'd want for a deck like this. You know, all the lords, the Lord of Atlantis, Pearl Trident guy, all that stuff is still in a box somewhere that I know where it is. And all I really need is her. Then the deck is done. So, there's really
and she's not that expensive.
And just swarm the field with powerful fish people.
Yeah. She's definitely fun. Definitely Merfolk tribal there for you. Man.
Yeah, I've always been fascinated with that stuff.
Yeah, Merfolk tribal is always cool. No different than Elf tribal.
Pretty much, yeah. Like they're building. Like you'll look at the 2 decks side by side, and you can see they're very similar in kind of how they operate in a sense where like they have a lot of support for both. Merfolk is definitely up there in like the trifecta of tribes. I would say you got your elves, your goblins, and then you got your Merfolk. So,
I mean, you got 3 cards all under. I mean, you got 3 lords all under $3. I mean, you got Merfolk Sovereign, Marrow Regere, and the Master of the Pearl Trident.
Yep.
All of them are lords for Merfolk, all under $3. On all CMC under 3.
Yep. All of those very good. Yeah, so the deck is very cheap to get out. It's very easy to get the ball rolling with it. They can really kind of pump their stuff out and they're very low to the ground, right? Like they're very, like you're saying, mana cost wise, they're very cheap. You can pretty much run them out very quickly with little to no issues, and it's just a fun. Horizons 3 is Harbinger of the Seas. It just turns all your
Yep.
non-basic lands into islands, which I love. It's like it's a Blood Moon, but for islands, which is one of my favorite things of all time.
Oh yeah, then you just throw in a card like Lord of
And
Atlantis.
the plethora of non-basic lands that are played in Commander, like everybody's playing a command tower. Well, what if that command tower were an island? You salty yet? So
Yeah, I mean,
it's
you
just
turn
it's
all
really
non-basics. I mean, if you turn all non-basics into islands, then you could throw a card like Lord of Atlantis in there, give all your merfolks Island Walk.
Mm-hmm. Which that is their big thing. The merfolk's biggest thing is giving themselves Island Walk. So if you're able to do that, you're pretty much in the bag.
All right. Sorry about that, everyone. We just had some technical difficulties. We're just trying to work out a new recording system that we're doing here. So with Svelun, we were talking. Essentially, you're just going to be building up a bunch of merfolk, correct?
Yeah, like Svilun is a very cool, fun commander that I've personally always found it fascinating. Like, we've had a lot of good legendary mono blue merfolk, but never one that like really, I don't know, like one that really stuck as like the creme de la creme uh, merfolk above all others, you know,
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton
so
of
to
good
speak.
legendary merfolk, but none are like, oh shit, I want to build that one.
Right. Like, I mean, we have the other guy. There's a whole bunch that you would run with Sviloon to be in the 99 for sure.
Yeah, I
But the
mean,
main idea of the deck is just you pump out a bunch of Merfolk, you swing in with them, you try to make your opponents have islands, so that you can get in easily with all your pumped up Merfolk. And with all the lords they have, you can make a pretty nasty Merfolk army
oh, without a
really
doubt.
quickly, like with your elves. Like, I mean, Merfolk lack the. They don't have the fast ramp that Merfolk do, but they don't really need it because you can play cards like High Tide, which are just you
Mm-hmm.
play High Tide and it's like okay, on turn 4 I can pump out like six Merfolk,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
game's basically done by then.
Yeah. So where
And you
would you
get your
put?
counterspell package.
Oh yeah. So where would you
Yeah,
put Svelun?
I would pop her in like high A.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking the same thing.
Yeah, I go like upper A tier for sure. She can be a very fun, good commander. Um, that definitely has its really good strong points, but it also kind of falters in and flounders maybe. Ah.
Yeah.
With like big board wipes and things like that can be tough. Giving her more forward one is really good because people like kind of underestimate how potent it can be to just make your opponents have to pay that one extra mana to target your stuff. Which like people always seem to forget that ward is the thing. We've seen with Miram how like, oh, she's got that ward too, but it's like people don't always seem to remember that part about the card text. And it's like you gotta remind them. It's like, oh, you're trying to pat the exile my commander. Did you pay 3 for it though?
Yeah, exactly.
Sit there and it's like, oh well, I tapped out to do other things. I didn't think about it. So
Yeah. So
it's like like, oh, you thought you could pay that for that, but no.
yeah. So my last commander, it's a very niche commander.
I would say
Um,
so.
it
I can't say I've seen one of him in a while.
no, and part of me wants to build him. And part of me still thinks it has a long way to go before it's truly viable. But it is Sun Quan, Lord of Wu. For 4 and 2 blue, he is a 4/4 human soldier, and he reads, creatures you control have horsemanship.
What the fuck is horsemanship?
Horsemanship is worse than flying.
Yeah.
Horsemanship reads, they can't be blocked except by creatures with horsemanship. So, it is worse than flying. Essentially, in today's day and age, your creatures are all unblockable. That's what they are.
Yeah. Nobody's playing horsemanship.
Which,
if they are, they're a meme.
Yeah. You could definitely do some mean stuff with Sun Quan. Throw in a card like the Mind Skinner, and now you have a mill deck.
Or a really fast finisher.
Yeah. Definitely could do with some Eldrazi. Eldrazi's would be mean as hell in this deck.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where you're going to want cards like Coastal Piracy, Biting the Thassa, even cards like Reconnaissance Mission, which reads, whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card.
Just another one. There are so many of those things out there that do that, with like Enduring Curiosity now being out. Just a plethora of ways to do it, which... Actually, I didn't even think about it earlier, but Enduring Curiosity could be a good one because it's got that, like, glimmer thing to it now, where, like, if it's destroyed, it comes back as an enchantment.
Yeah.
So, like, that one actually I might start playing over Coastal Piracy, just because if they kill it as a creature, okay, cool. It just comes right back as an enchantment, and you kind of wasted a removal.
Yeah.
Now you need an extra piece of removal to get rid of it, so... I don't know why I didn't consider that earlier. That's kind of a fault on my part. I should have thought of that sooner, because that actually makes it kind of a cut above the rest there.
Yeah, I mean, Christ, if you want, play them both, and I believe they stack.
They do, yep.
Then you could get cards in there like Luzon, Scholar General, 2 and 2 blue. He has horsemanship as well, and when he reads, whenever he deals damage to an opponent, you may draw a card.
There you go. Name of the game with blue is card draw.
I mean, a lot of this is just going to be drawing cards. You can maybe set it up so you're just milling your opponent. There's a bunch of different ways that you could build up Sun Quan. But with Sun Quan, I feel like a lot of these commanders that we're talking about, they can all be built the same way. Blue has a lot of mill, card draw, I win. And then of course, counterspell. You're not playing any cards.
Yeah, you definitely want your note package in there for sure. You want to be able to be like, how about you don't kill my stuff right now? Or how about you don't win the game? I'm going to win the game next turn.
Yeah. But with all these cards and all these different decks, as always, there's many different ways to build mono blue. Regardless if you're playing Bruvek, if you're playing Min Wily Illusionist, or even a card like Azami. You can play it many different ways. Different win cons, different play styles. Play out to your heart's desire. Find something that works for you. When I first started playing Mono Blue, I hated it because I didn't find one that I liked.
Which can be tough. If it's not, your style, then it can be tough. But actually, I was just thinking that horsemanship guy could fit really nicely into Talrind to make your Drakes even more difficult to block.
Yeah.
So if flying just wasn't cutting it for you, how about you make those Drakes able to ride on horses?
And then throw in the Mind Skinner, and now your opponents are milling everything, and you win that way.
Just because you can,
The Mind Skinner, I'm looking at this like Triumph of the Hordes.
You really love that one. I think you need to build that one.
Yeah.
That should be your next brew.
I'm looking at the Mind Skinner, almost similar to like Triumph of the Hordes with mono green.
Right?
Yeah, I win. But all right, with that, I would probably put Sun Quan B. I think he's probably the worst out of all of them right now.
He's definitely on the lower end just because all he does is horsemanship, and he needs a lot of support to really get that ball rolling. So he's definitely like a B plus, I would think, because it's a fun niche kind of. He's got that little bit of flavor to him, which is kind of funny. And he'd be kind of fun to just slap on the table, and nobody's gonna see him coming. No one's gonna know what you're doing with it.
Yeah.
So it could be a fun kind of little mystery package to, have whatever else you want in there. But on his own, compared to the others,
he doesn't have much going for him other than the horsemanship.
Right.
But with that, we don't have many new spoilers to really even talk about.
Not really, no. Spoiler section is 0.
We only really had Lifecraft Engine spoiled from 8th since the last episode.
Hopefully, I think we need to wait a few more weeks. A couple more weeks, and I think spoilers is going to really start kicking off.
Yeah, a couple more weeks here, and we'll be able to talk more spoilers. There is a big rumor that the undocumented Universes Beyond set for the end of the year could potentially be Avatar: The Last Airbender. I don't know how true
that could be interesting.
Is.
Yeah, it's all a lot of hearsay now, so we'll have to give it some time, wait and see. But that could be cool. I mean, if they've already got SpongeBob, I mean, hell.
Yeah, I mean, Christ, SpongeBob is coming. Give me some Avatar. But
right, I'll take Avatar over SpongeBob.
Yeah. But with that, as always, I am Kava.
It's been Jack.
And fellow Planeswalkers, it was nice talking with you. Hope you enjoyed our first live video footage of us. And
got some faces to the names. There you go.
And unfortunately, we're probably a lot better looking than you thought we were. So, everyone, have a great afternoon, and we will talk to you guys all later.
Take care.